And I get asked a lot of the time who my favourite player is. And I pick Beau McCreary every time. I don't know why, as other than the fact that he tries really hard. He always sticks his tackles. Like, it's little tiny things that I love about players, that you don't have to be the best player in the team to be a really good player. And that's how I sort of think about it at work as well. Like, I don't have to be the best at what I do, but I can be the best at what my role is, which is sort of, I think, is a great piece of advice to take for anyone, and another way that sport just influences everything.
G'day guys, coming up on the show today is Ashleigh Newton-Spence. Ash is one of our favourite SportsGrad Pro members, and she's also the competitions coordinator at Champion Data. If you're not familiar with Champion Data, they are the company behind the statistics that run some of your favourite sports. Think AFL, Netball Australia and LIVGolf. Ash has been with Champion Data for over 8 years, and previous to this worked in radio production at Channel 10 as a production assistant. There's a lot to look out for in this episode, and if you're thinking about careers at Champion Data, well, Ash gives an incredible overview about how to get your foot in the door, what they look for, and where you can take it once you are inside. So if that tickles your fancy, or you just want to find out how to effectively manage people, which is what Ash does a lot in her role, then dive into this episode. You're going to absolutely love it. Let's go.
I started volunteering.
It's all about who you know in sport.
Am I going to be calling the last 10 seconds of the grand final?
You can connect with the interviewer. The hand goes up when they've got to make a decision.
Having a network is one of the most important things you can do.
I didn't necessarily follow my passion. I followed my curiosity.
Once you've worked in sport, there's no going back.
And then lo and behold, before I left, I got offered 2.
Hello and welcome to the SportsGrad Podcast, the ultimate guide to make it in the sports industry. My name is Ruben Williams, and usually I'm joined with my friend Ryan Walker, who I met at Cricket Australia. Today he had to sit this one out, unfortunately, so you're just stuck with me and Ash for this episode, but it is an awesome one nonetheless. Each week we learn how people made it in the sports industry and tease out their career decisions, their work habits, their skills, everything they do that makes them an awesome industry professional. And this is so that you can learn how to get into the industry, get promoted with it, and start thriving in your career. If you're not already, follow us on LinkedIn and connect with us and hundreds of others working in the sports industry. And if you want to become a SportsGrad member, head to the SportsGrad website as well. We can learn about the fastest way to grow your sports industry community. Now, as always, we love to start our episodes with a bit of a community update. And the first thing I'd love to share is that if you are not registered for our information night this week, then make sure you jump online. Not often do we open up the community to answer questions and chat directly to you. So if you're not a member and you're thinking about becoming a member, I'd highly encourage you to join our information night that's coming up this week. Head to the link in our show notes to do so, or if you head to our website, you'll find a where you can register for that as well, and we can chat directly to you, give you a look on the inside and tell you everything you need to know about the community. Now, this week, we need to shout out a few people who are doing some awesome things. The first one goes to Michael Foley. Michael has been around the traps of SportsGrad for years. I reckon 2021 he joined, and he's just got a brand new full-time job as a community development officer at Basketball South Australia. So well done to you, Michael. That's absolutely awesome. And to see how far you've grown in that time as well has been awesome to watch. Secondly, we have Rishab Jain, who's got a job as a news reporter at the Courier Mail. So well done to you, Rishab. Jobs in journalism are not easy to come by, so the fact that you've broken in is outstanding. So well done to you. Now, if you're looking to get involved in the SportsGrad community, or if you're a member and you want to know what's coming up as well, we've always got plenty of events happening. We have speed networking happening for our rookies happening on the 10th of June, and pros, your next speed networking is coming up on the 18th. And our next exciting event is a Mavs watch party. If you're not aware of the Mavs, I'm talking about the Melbourne Mavericks. We are getting along to their game on Sunday, the 16th of June, as a community to watch the game together, have a bit of networking, have a bit of fun, watch some live sport together, and just get together. So if you want to join in on that, head to our events page on our website and you can get a ticket to that. Otherwise, make sure you get along to the information night this Wednesday, the 12th of June. Now, there's always a lot going on in the SportsGrad community, and sometimes it can be easier just to have it all in one place so you know what the events are, what job opportunities are coming up, what other things are happening, and to meet the people inside the community too. So the best way to get everything condensed in one place is through our newsletter. So if you'd enjoy a quick email from us every Friday, then head to sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter, and you won't miss out on a single thing. Now, please enjoy this episode with Ashleigh Newton-Spence.
Are you aiming for a future in sport? Be ready to transform the industry. Study with Deakin and be prepared to redefine what it means to work in sport. Deakin's School of Exercise and Nutrition Sciences is ranked number 1 in the world. So if you want to turn your passion for sport into an impactful career, get ready to push the limits of exercise and sports science, sport coaching, sport development, sports management, nutrition sciences, physical education, and more. Apply now to study at Deakin in 2024.
Ash, welcome to the SportsGrad Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
We always love the opportunity to get pro members from our community onto the podcast, and you're a great friend of SportsGrad. I still remember when other pro member Crystal Whitaker brought you along to our International Women's Day event and introduced you to it all. So it's great that you can be a part of the community now.
No, I'm absolutely loving it. I've learnt so much. I've gotten a bit braver since I've been part of the community, and I've started sending out messages and just being a little bit more forward, which I've always struggled with. So it's been a great sort of pusher to try new things and come out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Love it. Well, we're going to dive in and ask you some quick fire questions, which we always kick off our interviews with. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask you about how do you explain to your friends and family who Champion Data is and what they do? Because some people might have a bit of knowledge of them. They see them on the footy, they get the fantasy scores. But from the inside, who are Champion Data and what do they do? And what is the scale of what they do?
Oh, the scale grows every time. Champion Data are there to tell the story of the game. Everybody knows what they see. Everybody can see what they see. But what we do is we provide the context. So we show the numbers. We show how things happen. So how are the Bulldogs doing so well at transitioning into the forward half? Why are Richmond struggling at the moment other than injury? There's lots of reasons why different things happen, and we sort of have the numbers to be able to quantify that. And then we do that by very, very in-depth training and very absolutely wonderful people that work for us that we spend a lot of time training and a lot of time talking to, getting sure that they're all on the same page, because we want the data that comes out of Adelaide, for example, to be exactly the same as the data that comes out of Melbourne. And there is grey. There's always grey in footy. It doesn't exist in black and white. So, yeah, we have to make sure we do our training right to get the data the same no matter what. But, yeah, we like to – the story behind the game is our tagline. We love it. And, yeah, I like to say we're there to tell the story.
Amazing. And can you give us some numbers in terms of, how many staff work at Champion Data? How many sports do you guys cover? How many countries around the world are you guys working in?
Yep. So full-time wise, there is just over 100, I think. And then we're working in Australia, obviously the US, and we've got people working over in Europe. So mainly out of London, but I know we've got someone working in Poland as well. So we're starting to become a real global force, which is so exciting. Casual-wise, we have over 200 based all around Australia and the world. The part that I'm more involved in is the Aussie contingent who play with footy and netball mainly. So we have over 200 around the country, and we have them in every state except the Northern Territory. We're very proud of the fact we've got Tassie going. We hope we had a Tassie person call a Tassie game for the first time a couple of weeks ago. That was so exciting. And, yeah, we love our casuals. They're a wonderful group of people, and we couldn't do what we do without them. So they're awesome.
Amazing. I did have a good friend from high school called Darcy who did a casual job with Champion Data, and he told me all about the Xbox controllers that you guys have to record stats, which I found absolutely fascinating. But I'm sure we'll dive more into the specifics of Champion Data soon. But on to our quickfire questions.
Sure.
We've got seven for you. First one, as always, is what was your first ever job?
I worked at McDonald's. I worked at Macca's for nearly 10 years, which is a long time, but it teaches you so much. I look at a lot of resumes now and I see Macca's and I go, right, yep, they've got a good basis of what's going on. Pressure, you're always going to, especially in our job, you live in pressure. It's always there. And if you can handle working at Macca's on especially grand final day or McHappy day, you can do anything.
I have heard good things about the training that comes out of Macca's, and I do love the story of how Ray Kroc grew it from. I heard someone describe it as the world's largest small business because of the way it was franchised and grown. Which I think it's an incredible story. What did you study at university?
So I did a Bachelor of Media at the University of Adelaide. I was adamant that I was going to be Australia's first ever female footy caller. Kelly Underwood kind of beat me to it, but that's okay. But I just, that was what I wanted to do. I knew it. So I went after media and sort of went down that path.
Lovely. And what's your favourite sporting moment?
Oh, I have so many. And I don't pick them based on anything other than I just like Buddy's 1000th is there. James Hird kicking the winning goal and hugging the crowd is there. Kevin Sheedy doing the spirals are there. But then it's other sporting moments. It's Netball World Cups. It's little things. It's seeing kids that you've watched come through champs play their first game and absolutely nail it. Those sort of things I get really excited about as well. So there's no one moment. It's just sport in general is my thing.
Love that. I was talking to a friend recently and we were discussing favourite sporting moments, and Buddy 1000's up there for me as well. And another one is Matthew Leckie scoring against Denmark to send us through the round of 16 of the Qatar World Cup. And my friend was saying to me, like, Ruben, like, Buddy 1000 was great, but surely, like, on a global scale, like the Socceroos and the state of the game and all that, like, that's got to be number one. But to your point, each of these moments is whatever it means to you. Mm-hmm. And we've had a bloke called Adrian Tobin come on the show in episode 250, and for him, his favourite sporting moments is just every single time he sees his kids improve. And so I think the moment can be whatever it means to you. That's kind of what I've learned from asking this question dozens of times.
Yeah, absolutely. And the moments can be so small, and it can be something that you just, if someone else goes, that's not important. And I argue it is. Like, we tend to look at players at champion rather than looking at the team. Like, it's all about the granularity of the players. And I get asked a lot of the time who my favourite player is. And I pick Bo McCreary every time. I don't know why, as other than the fact that he tries really hard. He always sticks his tackles. Like, it's little tiny things that I love about players, that you don't have to be the best player in the team to be a really good player. And that's how I sort of think about it at work as well. Like, I don't have to be the best at what I do, but I can be the best at what my role is, which is sort of, I think, is a great piece of advice to take for anyone, and another way that sport just influences everything.
That's it. Now, I'm sure you would have hired a few casuals in your time across Macca's and Champion. Do you have a favourite interview question that you like to ask of people?
I do. And I came up with it myself, so I'm a bit proud of this one. I feel like I'm going to give it away now for all those casuals that come through. So, if you're going to apply for a job, here you go. So we want to know how much they love sport. Like, that's sort of at the end of the day, the people that come through love foot, like that get a job with us, they love footy. So you want that. So we ask them who their favourite team is, and then they might go, for example, they might go Sydney, and I'm like, all right. And we usually do this in the off season, so you tailor the question a little bit to when you ask it, but generally, if it's the end of the season, we'll say, okay, you go for Sydney, you're John Longmire, put yourself in his shoes, you're coming up to the next season. What are you going to do to improve the team next year, and why and how? And if you got any data or a particular stat or something you'd use to highlight your point. So what you're doing there is you're, number one, finding out what they know about their team and how much they love their team and how much detail they go into. But what do they already know about stats? What do they already know and know how to put into practice? And it's just so interesting. You get such interesting responses, but the ones that do really well, they're not the ones that can rattle off 100 million different stats, but they can explain why they think that stat is important. And that's what you want. You want them to understand the stat, not necessarily just be able to rattle off nuts and numbers.
Yep. Love that. Well, hopefully you get a few more prepared interview answers coming your way.
Oh, I love it. And they're the ones too that you get to have that really good chat with. Like, a great interview is one that you don't ever want to end, because you're just chatting with the person and you can just keep going. And that's if you can answer that question well, we're going to talk forever. So it's going to be great.
Beautiful. I think a lot of people find that useful. What is one book or podcast that you'd recommend that's helped you at work?
Oh, that's a hard one, because I'm not a book or podcast person for work.
It could be a resource, any type.
Honestly, this community's been the biggest resource for me recently because I have started to kind of delve into it a little bit more. I'm one of these weird people that I like to have the radio on all day. So without giving a shameless plug to SEN, I have SEN on from 6 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. It just runs because I like to know what's going on, what they're saying, how they're working things out. That's got a bit to do with the media background. And I grew up in Adelaide. We had 5AA. I listened to sport all day. That's just what we did. So that's sort of my resource for knowing what's going on and being able to hear all the different opinions and stuff. But just the SportsGrad community's helped me come out of my shell a little bit more. I feel like I've been happily sitting in my little part of the world for a long time and not sort of gone, okay, well, there's a big wide world out there. I don't have to sit in my hole. I can come out and meet some people, and that's been really hard, but really inspiring to be part of that and be able to come out that way.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. I'll pay you for that answer later. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's one platform that you use at work that you couldn't live without?
It's so bad. It's CIS, which is our AFL platform. That's our coaches' information system. I think it's system. We just call it CIS. I don't even know what it stands for half the time. It gives us all the data, so it gives it live. So something that we'll do on the weekend, depending on how busy the weekend is. The AFL is very well watched, as in there's lots of people watching the AFL games to see what happens. The Tier 2 sports aren't quite as well watched. So when we do Sample, Waffle, VFL, so we like to just sort of sit there and make sure that the stats tick over. So I sit there and watch the ticker on CIS basically for every game that starts because I just like to know that it's all working and it's fine. So CIS is the thing that I don't think I could ever live without. It's going to be interesting if I ever have to. But Slack's the other one. We use Slack all day, every day. I try so hard to turn it off. I just can't. I like to know what's going on even on my days off. So it's always there and it's always just good to know what's happening with everybody.
Is CIS something that you have to be working with Champion Data to get access to and to learn, or is it available for people to play around with and get familiar with before they say want to join Champion?
No, it's a subscription one. It's mainly used by the coaches and the media. So it's not as the in-depth version of CIS is only available to purchase and license that way. However, what you get on the AFL website is pretty close. It's the data is still the same. It still ticks over. It still gives you 90% of what they can see. The only difference is CIS is obviously set up to be a display for the coaches or the media, and it's very customizable, whereas the AFL website or the AFL app, you just have to go through what they've got. But the data is the same either way.
Gotcha. I see. Last question. If you had 30 minutes to pick anyone's brain, who would it be and why?
I'll go hero worship first, which would be Kevin Sheedy, because I'm a Bomber girl. I love them all, but I'm a Bomber girl at heart. And he's just what he's done for football as a whole, not just for football players and football coaches, but what he's done for the full football landscape, for clubs, for people who like everything. He's just, I could talk to him for more than 30 minutes, but I could talk to him forever. And the other one would be Laura Kane, such an inspiration, such someone that you can aspire, or I aspire to be, kind of like in a funny little way. It's so good to see women in high profile kind of things, and the more she does, the more I'm just standing behind it going, that's what I think we should have, that kind of person to be able to look up to. And it's good for us people that maybe aren't such great footballers. We can't aspire to be players anymore. We're a bit old too. Can't aspire to be a player anymore, but I can still aspire to be that.
Amazing. Yeah, Laura Kane's a great one, doing incredible things and progressed her career incredibly well.
Amazing.
Awesome. If anyone's got a connection to her, please let us know. We'd love to chat to her on the podcast at some point.
I will have that podcast on repeat.
Wonderful. All right, well, let's dive in a bit deeper into your role. You are the competitions coordinator at Champion Data. Can you explain what that involves and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yep. So there's 4 of us in our team that are coordinators because it takes a lot. We're managed by our team lead. So there's 5 of us in our team. We create the stats. So that's a very basic way of saying it. But what we do is we look after the staff who go out and call the stats and create the data that gets sold. So that's the sort of the very basic way I like to explain it. There's so much to my job. I feel like I could explain it forever. But the number one thing for me is is our staff. So it's hiring them. So whenever that comes up, we're hiring in South Australia at the moment. We don't like to wait till the end of the year, but it is the logical place to do it. But we hire all year long. So keep an eye on that LinkedIn, people. There's my little shout out. Keep an eye on LinkedIn because there are jobs all the time. So we have to hire them. We have to then onboard them and then train them to be what we need them to be. There's a lot of different roles that you can be at Champion Data. It's not just the caller, which is the one that sort of everyone leans towards because it's the obvious one, but For an AFL game, we've got 11 people working on that game. Every game has 11 people. 5 of them are at venue, 6 of them are back in the office. We've even got a couple of remote roles that sort of peripherate around the edges. For a sample league game, you've got 5 people doing that role at venue. For a VFL league game, you've got 2 at venue, 1 in the office. For a waffle league game, you've got 3 at the venue. So they're all a little different. They're all different the way they do things. But at the end of the day, a VFL game should be called the same way as a sample game, and the data is comparable across the board. So that really helps teams and clubs be able to really easily compare how someone's going in a VFL game compared to a waffle game. So that's the sort of the crux of it. But it's then looking after those casuals. It's making sure that they have all the things that they need. Casuals don't tend to stay around for only a few years. They tend to be here forever. We've got some casuals that have been at Champion for 20 years. We've got some that I swear they'll never leave. And if they do, I'll be heartbroken. But yeah, we encourage them to stay around for as long as they can. A lot of the times they start off as uni students. They come into us when we've got a couple of high school students as well, come into us when they're really young, and then we sort of ride that wave through uni, getting that first full-time job, balancing, and then life changes, people getting married, people having kids. And the best thing about the way that we like to approach the casuals is if you need to pull back for a little while for whatever it is, if it's exams, if it's your partner's having a baby, whatever it is, okay, take that time, take a break. But we're always here when you want to come back. And you might just do 1 shift a month for a couple of months while you work out life, and then you come back. Or we don't have too many that don't come back. Most of the time they do. So, but if that's what you do, that's what you do. We've got lots of people that go overseas and travel and then come back after 12 months, and they come back and they join the family again. So we love that part of it. So that's sort of the casual part. And then it's a lot of operational stuff. So it's making sure that at each venue we've got what we need. So we've got power. We're in an elevated position. We're not out in the rain, that everybody's safe, like those sort of basic things. Have they in the right spot, got all the power and stuff? Are the teams giving us what we need? So do we have the team sheets? Do we have the ability to get what we need? Can we go down and say, okay, well, you've got a number 17 running out there, but I don't have him on my team sheet. Can you tell me who he is? Like it's all the little nitty gritty things that sometimes happen. And there'll always be a random person running around that you don't expect to see. So it's how they deal with that and then being able to try and fix that. So sometimes that has to happen on a Monday. It doesn't get done on the weekend. And we just go back in and edit the data on Monday. So it's all doing that stuff. It's then rostering. So I have to look after the rosters. At the moment, I look after just South Australia, but for a little while I had SA and WA. So it's making sure all the staff are at the right venue at the right time, that the right teams are there. So you make sure that if you've got a really experienced caller, you can probably use a less experienced capture operator. But if they're on the same level, then you can kind of have a little bit of someone newer with someone newer and join it up. So it's making sure the experience level's right across the board. You're making sure we've got enough people there. That sort of part then doubles back to the hiring part. What else do I do? Collate vision. Our department does all the packaging as well. So we package all the vision and line it up with the stats so that the clubs can get hold of it. And that's for every competition that we do. So AFL down to Coates League and everything in between. Our department really does sort of go over a bunch of different things, but that operations thing, like making sure that the data gets captured correctly and then sent out to where it needs to be, that's sort of the crux of it.
Amazing. So for people who are
Did
wondering,
I talk enough there?
No, that was terrific. Like the detail in that was sensational, because I think people just see the numbers on the AFL app, for example, and think, oh, this is cool. I wonder how like that gets captured. But now they know. So it sounds like those casual roles, like people can do them just like on the side of like a full-time job somewhere else. But specifically, like I'd love to know, like, because I believe you started out as a data capturer as well before progressing into being the person who coordinates the capturers. Like what makes a great capturer? Do you just have to love numbers or have an extreme attention to detail or something in between? What really makes people stand out for that casual role?
There's not. It's very different depending on what we need them for. So for a caller, it's the ability to almost just keep going, because the hardest thing to do with calling is get back in. So it's being able to see something, articulate it the right way, and then when something weird happens, because let's face it, footy, something weird always happens. So you're never prepared for something. So you just sort of have to sometimes go with it. And it's how do you recover? And I actually reckon that's for the capture operator as well. Mistakes happen. We're human beings. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. We're all human beings. We make mistakes. And that could be for so many different reasons. But how do you recover from that mistake? So how do you, if you fall apart and you panic and you're just going to make it worse. So you've got to have the ability to kind of, yep, cool, I made that error. Keep going. because if you focus on the 1% of stats that you missed, you'll miss the next 99%. And that 99% at the end of the day is so much more important. There are so many things that aren't important on game day that we can fix. Like, we can fix so many things. At the end of the day, if we got the score right, please always get the score right. If we've got the score right and we've got the team stats there, we can add the detail in, because that's where the ability comes back, when we can come back to it. And we do that as quick as we can. At AFL level, we're doing that on the fly. So that's a very easy thing for us to do. We make sure we've got so many eyes on it, so we can make sure that we're as correct as we can be. Tier 2 is maybe a little bit slower, and that's just due to people, not as many people working on it. But we get there. We do get there as quick as we can, and we try to knock off all the editing before the end of the weekend, so that by Monday, when they're coming in for their reviews, we've got everything right.
Amazing. So, Ash, it seems like adaptability to cope with whatever the AFL might throw at you is kind of a key skill to this, which I think a lot of people might think, oh, champion data, just got to love the stats, that'll get me in the door. But that seems to be a key part of this role. And then a follow-up question to that, due to your transition from being a capturer into the coordinator and helping the other capturers, do you feel like you have to be a capturer to really be able to do your role properly, or can you come in at that next level without having done the original capturing?
Yeah, no, you definitely can. I think if you look at our full department, most of the people in there have come from a long time being a casual and kind of transitioned into it. There are 2 of us, and I still include myself. I know I started, but I was only sort of a casual for 12 months. And I was also in Queensland, which was slightly different to everybody else, because they were all casuals in Victoria for 5, 6, 7 years. And I got very, very lucky. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And they took a chance on the weird girl from Queensland. So I came down to Melbourne, but I never saw myself as an insider. I was very much someone that came from outside, and that was good. It gave me a different perspective, and it gave me a different way of looking at things. And I always think that every team needs a disruptor. They need someone that comes in that's a little bit different, and that was me to begin with. And then we brought in another person. We brought him in just before COVID. He kind of got stuffed a little bit with COVID. We brought him in just beforehand, and unfortunately, when that happened, we had to let him go. But we got him back straight after COVID because he was so good. Alex is one of my favourite people in the whole world, and he's a member of our team. But he's never worked with champion data as a casual. He doesn't know how to do. He does because he's taught himself how, but he can't do any of the roles on the roster, or couldn't when we hired him. But it's all about just wanting to learn what they do and understanding it. And as long as you understand what it is, you don't have to know how to do it. I say to all our casuals, you can call better than I ever will, and you can capture better than I ever will. But I understand what you need, and I can help you get to wherever you need to get to. If that's doing more shifts, less shift, whatever it is. But you just need to understand what they're going through and how hard it is. And once you understand that, you can then give the advice and kind of go, okay, we'll do this. But you don't have to be a casual to get the full time. It's a very logical move, but it's not always the necessity.
Yep, I see. So it sounds like as long as you can develop that empathy for the people who you're trying to help, then you'll be able to be in a position where you can, appropriately help them.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of attention to detail that has to happen, and that's from a capture level, but also just on making sure that the games roll around at the right time, because they change a lot. So it's being able to sort of, even those tiny little things, and if you have the right processes in place, generally you pick up those details.
Now, you've been at Champion Data for over 8 years, I believe. How do you continue to develop and grow over such a long time at one particular organisation?
I think you have to seek it out a little bit. And I think all of us get very comfortable in what we do and how we do it. And you can sort of take that back seat. But if you want to learn, if you want to push, if you want to try something different, I never thought that I would take the role in recruitment that I have taken. That's sort of something that I grabbed hold of eventually and went, I think I could do that. So that's sort of when I sort of explain the different things that all my team do, that's sort of my little niche. And it's, I never thought I'd be the person on the other side of the interview chair ever, but it's a lot of fun. It's getting to meet so many different people and just see a little bit of yourself, but other people that you know in them, and be able to go, yep, that's good. That's going to be, and it's identifying that talent. I'm sure footy recruiters think the same thing. They see something in someone and they go, yeah, you're going to be good. And we love that. We have those little discussions on the inside. We'll go, yep, this one's going to be good. And you have little internal bets on them and do the things. But it's such every day is different. It doesn't matter what happens. Every day is a little bit different. And I know when I go to work on a Monday, I have to walk in and I have to do timesheets. It's tedious. Is that a good adjective? I don't even know if that's right either. It's a monotonous task. It just has to happen. But they're never the same. The timesheets are different every single week. There's always a different challenge. There's always a different per diem to add to. So if you find, and I say the same thing with rostering. Rostering can be a very simple thing. You can just go, okay, I'm putting this person at X Convenience Oval on Saturday, and that's fine. The more you care, the more empathetic you are to how people live and what they're good at and their skills and the join of the team, the better you are at it. So it's just like with everything, if you take more time to actually invest in it, you will become better at it. And I think that's where the rostering part can be. You can go and just chuck 3 people at any venue and it'll be fine. But if you actually take the time to make sure the team's right, that you're not sending them to the other side of Adelaide, like all those little things, that joins up to make it really good. And it's a puzzle that the pieces will all fit together, but it's how good do they fit together. And you can get 2 pieces that aren't quite right. You can make them fit, or you can just find the pieces that naturally fit. And my job's a puzzle most of the time, and I like making it fit as best as I can.
What about challenges that come up with work? What are some of the challenges that you deal with, and how do you overcome with them?
Biggest challenges for me come from when someone's not performing the way that you would like them to. Whether that's they're struggling with the role that we've given them, or we've started them in one role and they're just not quite getting it. Most of the time, if we've hired you, you're generally a pretty good person. So we like to, or we think you are. We don't sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you can't do one role, we'll teach you how to do something else. There's plenty of things that you can do. So we'll find something for you some way or the other. But it's hard to have those conversations. It's hard to be, hey, we've spent the last 10 weeks training you to be a capturer. You're just not getting it, or you're getting it, but you're not at a level that I can throw you out to a game and know that I'm going to consistently get what I need from you. So it's about having those conversations and being, how do you make that sound like you're doing the right thing by them while you're also doing the right thing by Champion Data, and making sure that we're still getting the data that we need and it's getting it the best we possibly can, while you're still making sure that you don't sort of hurt this person on the way out, because you are dealing with humans and you don't want to hurt anybody. So it's, how do you bring that person along even when they're struggling? And that's the hardest part, but it's also, and I don't enjoy it, but I like being challenged to find a way to get them to that next step, because sometimes you take someone that you're like, okay, you're just not a capturer. It's just not working. You just don't have that speed. But you can put them on interchange capture and they're the best ever. Like, they just nail it, because you don't need to be clicking a button every half second on the interchange role. You only have to be doing that when they come off the bench. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit less fast paced, no less important, but it's just a different role, and it gives them something that they can do really well. And then you can build them back up to capture. They might just struggle with it at the beginning. We like to say, so when I got hired, sorry to go off on a little mini tangent, I was being trained as a caller. I can't call. I can't. I don't know why. My brain overthinks it. I just can't do it. I know what the stats are. I know what I'm seeing. Can't verbalize it, which is ridiculous considering how fast and how much I talk. But I can't. So what we did when I moved to Victoria, we turned me into a capturer, because for whatever reason, I can do that. So you just switched it. So everybody gets one way or the other. You generally you can get one or the other, or that you can do interchange or whatever the other roles are. But just because you can't do it doesn't mean you don't get it. And the getting it is almost harder than the doing it.
I see.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Absolutely. I'm really interested, because it sounds like it's becoming quite clear that your role as a competitions coordinator is a lot of people management, and I'm wondering if over the years, is there any particular training or advice you've received from other people, or just stuff that you've picked up in the way that you've had hundreds of conversations with people? How have you developed your ability to have those tough conversations with staff?
I learned a lot from our previous HR manager and my boss, Amanda. She's amazing. She's been at Champion Data for, I like to say forever. It's not quite forever, but it's a long time. I say she taught me everything I know. She's pretty close, but she's taught me that empathy. I think I always had the empathy. I think when I was younger, my friends used to joke I was the mum because I sort of made sure everybody was okay. And in a funny kind of way, I think I still am. I do think of my casuals a little bit as my kids, which is even funny now that I have my own. So it's a funny kind of juxtaposition, but you do. If you care about what you do and you care about the people that work for you, it becomes really easy to be someone that can have those tough conversations. Because if you're someone that talks to them all the time and you talk to them about the good stuff and the bad stuff, that goes down a bit better because you have that relationship and you can tell them how you're struggling. It's like when your mum tells you something that you don't want to hear compared to like some random person on the street. If your mum says it, it's coming from a place of care. It's coming from I want you to get better because of. And I feel like I've developed that with most of my casuals. I work really hard to have those conversations, and it's a lot of time and it's a lot of just little chats. And it's really hard when you don't live in the same state as them, which I've never lived in the same state as the people that I directly manage. They've always been on the other side of the country. But if you have those chats and you keep in touch and you take a bit of an interest in their lives, not just what they do for you, but what they do outside, who's a teacher, who's a groundskeeper, who's a bin man, like all those little things. The more it's like anything, the more you invest in them, the better it is, and you just become better at what you do. But I think that's just, I'm a people person in general, I think. I know I get sick of people. COVID taught me that I don't need a lot of people, but I do love hanging out with people and chatting to people and being that sort of person that can just sit in a room and just talk to a bunch of people. So I think that helps. But I also think as long as you have the want to do it more than just the ability, if you want to talk to people, if you want to go out of your way, you'll always be a little bit better.
It sounds like for your ability to have these tough conversations, you've done a lot of front loading to develop a good relationship with them first, so that when or if the opportunity comes up or should you need to go down that path, it becomes much easier than, trying to talk to someone who you've got no relationship with and you're just trying to give them a slap on the wrist, which I'm sure, nobody would want to receive. So the proactive approach seems much better.
Yeah, it's the more you. So when I took over, because I took over from Crystal, so I know you've had Crystal on the, not on the podcast, you've done an interview with Crystal. Crystal's amazing. She's such a hard act to follow in every way, shape or form. And what she's done just baffles me every day. But I took over from Crystal, which was like coming in behind Lady Gaga. Like, you can't beat that, so I'm not going to. But I had to build those relationships because she had them. And this is this new weird girl that's come in and is trying to tell me who the things. Now, I got really lucky that I was looking after South Australia and I'm a South Australian. So I had that connection straight away that I talk a little bit like them and I can tell them what free chocks are, little things. But you have that rapport and then you build it. So the guys that had been around for 5, 6, 7 years before I even got there, they didn't trust this weird girl that's just come in, and I had to earn it. And it's very much about earning the trust of the people that you're then looking after. Because if they don't trust you and you're not doing it right, they're going to get cranky and then they leave or they do things sort of half-assed. And the more that you can invest in them, the more they care, the more I care, they care, and then the better product we're going to get at the end.
Absolutely. For those who are wondering who this Lady Gaga phenomenon is, Crystal Whitaker, who's a part of our pro community and a friendly face wherever we see her at events. She's been on, I think she's been in our newsletter, I believe. We did an interview with her there. So
yes.
If anyone wants to read up on her, if you go to our website and look at the blog, you'll be able to scroll down and find her in there. Ash, I'm wondering about some essential skills to do your job. If you had to really nail it down and say to someone, if you want to get to this position at Champion Data, here are the 3 things that you need to be excellent at, what would you drill it down to?
I think empathy is the first one. And I think I've said empathy about 8 times during this podcast. So that's sort of one that just comes straight out to mind. You just have to care, like just a little. It's just so much easier on you and them. It does come the other way though. Sometimes you can care a little bit too much, but I'd rather go that way, so that's okay. You have to be organised. You have to be able to sort of understand the way that a roster or a weekend works. So you have to know have a little bit of a knowledge of where you're rostering. Like, it's not a huge big thing, but like for Victoria, for example, you wouldn't put someone on a game at Geelong and then put them on another game at the MCG an hour later because they physically can't do that. So it's having that little bit of knowledge, but that comes from your organisation of understanding what you're doing, where it's from, those sort of little nitty-gritty details. And you do have to love what you do. You have to care enough about what you're doing, and that, I think that goes for anything, but you have to care that it matters that there's a difference between that loose and that hard. You've got to care about the granular details of, does it matter if that's a contested mark? Yes, it does. Why does it matter? There's so little things, but the player cares, the media care, the betting agencies care, everybody cares. So if you don't care, it's never going to all line up. So you've got to make sure that you produce that care for and give that understanding to the people that you're bringing on board, so that all of them care anyway. You don't have to teach them how to care about it, but it's making sure that they don't ever lose that. So how do you keep that person still caring 10 years after they started? Those sort of things that I think the care comes from there.
Yeah, particularly when Supercoach grand finals are being decided by 1 or 2 points, contested versus uncontested mark can make all the difference.
And I will give you the best example ever. So we had our awesome Perth crew call the grand final over in Perth when the Demons won. And if you go back, he's going to hate me saying this, but I'm going to do it anyway. If you go back, Christian Petrarca beat the record for the most amount of disposals in a grand final ever with 40. However, we took one away from him because when we looked at it, it wasn't quite there. It was more of a knock-on than an actual possession. So we took it away from him. So it went down to 39, so therefore the record was only equaled, not beaten. That casual that called that game still beats himself up because he's just like, I got it wrong. And that's how much they care. And that's why it's so important, because they care if they get that. Not just because, and they care about that from an AFL grand final level to a Waffle Colts level. They still want it to be right. And that's the part about it that's the hardest to teach, the hardest to get. But when you get it, they're awesome.
Well, you're literally influencing history. Like that stat goes down in, the records of the game, and it's down to one person to decide if it's going to be a record or not. So it is an important job.
Yep. We have lots of people checking it along the way, but yes, it's one person who calls it that decides that.
Yeah. So like when you really zoom out, it's like, wow, I've actually got a very important job here that a lot of people care about.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. For people who are thinking about, careers at Champion Data and looking at, maybe I'd love to be a casual one day and then progress to your role. What else goes on inside Champion Data? What other departments of the business do you guys have and operate that people can branch out into?
Yep. So the sport part, everyone sort of looks at as the big shiny fancy thing, which it is, but we've also got a really big broadcast department. We do so many of the broadcast graphics that appear on Fox Footy, on Channel 7, LIVGolf, go all over the world with LIVGolf. It's something we're so proud of. The broadcast department, I understand 90% of it, but I won't explain it because I'm sure I'll do it wrong. But if you love graphics and you love creating and being really artistic and stuff, that's open to you, especially if you love sport, because you'll just get inundated with numbers and you'll love it because it's so much fun. If you like computers and you like sport, we've got an amazing IT department that run from everything from, security level kind of stuff, making sure our data's all secure and making sure it's all taken care of, to front-end developers making new programs and running stuff with our API and things like that. So again, so much that you can go into there, creating apps, building new platforms. Baffles me what they do sometimes, but it's so awesome. We've got the normal things. You've got an HR department, you've got a finance department. It's just around sport. Like, if you love numbers, if you like money numbers, we've got that department too. What else? We have got commercial department. We can sell stuff. There's nothing that, if you love sport and you sort of want to be on that sort of intersection between sport and tech and a bit of TV, that's where Champion sits. That's where we sit in the world. We take a bit of everything, but every company needs a business administrator and a social media manager, like all those things. So if there's always, I like to say, if there's a job that exists, Champion's probably got it. We just need to find where you fit.
Amazing. So it sounds like there's plenty of opportunity for people to kind of get their foot in the door with these casual roles and then explore what the rest of this business can offer. Absolutely.
And yeah, the casuals is just the start. Like, that's, get a taste of it, see what we do at the front line, and then see where it takes you. And you've got to be a little lucky, because people don't tend to leave Champion all that often. We tend to hang around because we like it. So that makes it a little bit harder. You kind of got to wait for someone to leave for you to take that role. But it does happen, and people have to move on for whatever reason it is. And it's if you're already in the pool, you're already seeing what's going on, you know that person's going. So you can say to me or to Amanda or to one of the other guys in the team, hey, I'm really interested in what that person does. Can you give me some more information? Are they going to hire someone to replace them? Can I throw my hat in the ring? And if you already know, then you're already half a step ahead.
Amazing. And you beat me to it on a couple of occasions, but I did want to ask you about your experience as a SportsGrad Pro member. Firstly, what was the main reason that led to you wanting to get involved, and what have you got out of it so far?
I think I was just very comfortable, like I said earlier, in my little hole, and I was quite happy doing what I was doing. And I am in a position where I had to move. So I recently left Victoria and came up to Queensland for family reasons, nothing to do with work. Very lucky that Champion allowed me to stay, and I can keep doing what I'm doing just from Queensland instead of Victoria, which is not as much fun. I don't get to see everybody every day, but it's, you do what you have to do. And I knew I was going to be in a position where I was going to have to meet new people and I was going to have to make a network, because you can't be on an island. You can't be all by yourself. And I decided that it was better to start when I was in Victoria so that I could be a bit comfortable. I could take Crystal with me and have a bit of a safety net before I start going out all by myself. So that was why I decided. And it was also really good timing with that International Women's Day event. That's a really big thing. I'm so passionate about women being in everything, but sport especially. We are still underrepresented. We still don't hold all the big things. It's so good to see the amount of things that we do and how fast women in sport has come since even when I started out. But I'm really passionate in helping other women get involved and making sure that it's open to everybody. It's not just, you don't have to be a boy to love sport. You can do whatever you want to do. So that kind of helped, and that event was just perfect for that. So that was where that started. And then what have I got out of it? I've got confidence in myself, a little bit more understanding that what I do is pretty cool, but the skills that I have, not just what I do, is pretty cool. And explaining to other people what Champion does, it's so difficult sometimes to explain it all because it's so granular and there's so many different things that happen. But it just makes me really appreciate how cool Champion is. But it's given me that ability to then promote myself within Champion. It's not just, it's a lot about what they do, but it's a lot about what I bring to, and I bring some pretty cool stuff to the table, which is nice to know as well. Amazing. Well, we love having you part of the community. Who are some of the other people that you've enjoyed meeting, and what other organisations and their staff members have you enjoyed mixing with? I will admit I jumped in at the very wrong moment because I was trying to move and meet new people at the same time. Sarah Lowe from Netball Australia was one that actually spoke at that event, which Sarah has been wonderful. I got to have coffee with her and have a bit of a chat, and she challenged me in a couple of things which I hadn't thought about, and I was joining SportsGrad to try and grow my community, but it actually sort of she held up a bit of a mirror as to there's things that you need to do and be if you want to be the best you can be. And I think I sort of was going on this move to Queensland was very much about my daughter and about my family, but it's a really good opportunity to also find what's my spark again, because you can get, with 8 years, you can get lost in the everyday of it. And I maintain I love my job. It's so much fun, but it is hard. Every job's hard. Even the best job in the world is hard. Like, I know you've spoken to Brian Taylor. I haven't listened to that whole podcast. I'm sorry, but I'm sure even doing the best job in the world of being an AFL commentator, it's hard. It's a lot of hard work. You've got to do all the things, and it's to stay good. You've got to keep doing it, and that's a lot of effort. And sometimes life gets in the way, and you can't give 100% of the time. You got to take that step back. But Sarah held up that mirror that if you want to be 100%, if you want to be what you want to be, you've got to do some things to yourself. And that was so good to hear from someone who knew nothing about me other than what I presented to her on a couple of very short occasions. And yeah, she was wonderful. And I cannot thank her enough for holding up that mirror, because she's pushed me to try some new things recently, which I'm pretty proud of. That's amazing to hear. It is incredible the impact the mentors can make in really just getting you to self-reflect. Definitely. But good on you for for making that connection and putting yourself in a position to receive that advice and going forth and taking it. So I'm glad to hear that something really positive has come out of it. Yeah, no, really, really positive, and just learning what mentors are and how important it is to have them. I I think I thought that you didn't, but even at an older age, even not quite as a grad, you can still kind of come up with new things and learn.
Absolutely. Well, that might be a good segue to my last question, and that is, if you could go back and mentor your younger self, say when you're 20 years old, and pass on one piece of advice to that person, what advice would you give?
Try everything. Don't be afraid of the word no. No doesn't hurt you. And I think when you're younger, when someone says no to you, you think it's such a final thing. It doesn't ever have to be. No is a full sentence, but it's not the end of the sentence. You can always add to it. So I've actually lost count of how many times someone has told me no, and it hurts for a second, and then it's over. And then you go, okay, no for that one. Is that really what I want, or is this just a push to try something different? And that was sort of where I ended up with the media stuff that I did. I tried to do a lot of different things to get in where I wanted, and I kept running into brick walls. And so I'm like, okay, well, what is kind of what I want that I haven't thought about? And that was where the job came up as a casual for Champion. It's like, I want to call footy. This is calling footy. It's not calling it on Channel 7 or the radio or anything, but it's very similar. And it's amazing how once you were in that environment that it was the right place and it took you to where you needed to be. So no isn't going to hurt you as much as you think it will. So just ask. The most amazing things in life happen when you just ask a question, and just what might happen. To ask questions. Don't be afraid of people saying no, and go with the flow a little bit. See where it goes, because you just never know what doing something a little bit out of your comfort zone might lead you to. There are just so many things around sport that you think it's got to be one thing, but there's so much else that goes on.
Amazing. Well, Ash, this has been awesome to chat and learn more about you. We love bumping into. I love bumping into you every time we see each other in the community, but to actually have the chance to chat deeper and learn more a bit about your history and what you do day to day in your job, and some of the learnings that you've taken out of that has been awesome to hear. So thank you for taking the time. Thanks for being part of the community and for adding to it. We always say that, it's there to help you, but every single person adds to the value of the community. And so we're always grateful to the wonderful people who choose to be a part of it. So we're very thankful that you choose to be a part of it too, and making an awesome space. So thanks for jumping on the pod.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
And for people who want to learn more about Champion Data, back in episode 206, we had former CEO Libby Owens come on, who can share a bit more about a journey to the CEO role in Champion. And you mentioned Brian Taylor. He was not long after Libby in episode 210. So for those people who want a bit more listening, there's 2 good episodes. But again, thanks very much, Ash.
No worries at all.
Guys, it's now time for Ask SportsGrad, where every week we answer a question from our community. And if you'd like to ask a question, first become a SportsGrad member. Head to sportsgrad.com.au/community to join and add your question to the channel named Ask SportsGrad. This one comes from James, and he says, Rubes, any advice on answering the inevitable interview question? So, do you have any questions for us? From the interviewer, what do employers generally like to hear? Great question. And I think this is an outstanding opportunity to showcase yourself and to really make sure that you stand out, because regardless of what question you ask, this is an opportunity to show that you've done your preparation. And it's also a chance to show that you care that the organisation is a good fit for you. You don't want to be so desperate that you're just willing to do anything and everything for them and you've got no questions for them. Organisations want to know that they are a good fit for you as well. So one approach that I like to take is to bring in some questions that give off a bit of with or without you energy. And what I mean by that is you got to ask questions that make sure you understand the organisation fit your needs. So for example, if professional development is really important to you, maybe ask questions about what opportunities are there to grow and to learn. Or if flexible work is really important to you, ask about, what ability is there to work from home or to work remotely for 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever it might be. Equally, making sure you get along with your manager is super important, because you're probably going to be spending more time with them than any other person in your life. And so asking questions like, what is your management style? Maybe throw a scenario at them. If I was to do X, how would you respond? So that you can get a gauge of, is this person a good fit for you to work with? Equally, you want to know if the culture is good. And, you can always ask, what's the culture like? And, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say it's great because they want you to join. But a better way to ask that is if you can do some research on the people who are interviewing you and say you see that the hiring manager has been there for 7 years, and you might ask them, I see that you've been at this company for 7 years. What is it about the organization that you enjoy that has kept you here for so long? Or on the flip side, if they've only been here for 6 months, 1 year, you might ask the opposite and say, hey, I saw that you're new to the company, but you spent 10 years in a previous job. What have you noticed about this organization that's different to your previous job that you really enjoy that makes you come to work every day? So I would be preparing a list of 5-6 questions that targeted at making sure the organization is a good fit for you as well. And that's when you'll get respect from the interviewers. Now, for those people who have listened to the SportsGrad podcast from episode 1, or if you haven't, go back to episode 1 with Ali Durkis, who at the time was the people and culture manager of the ICC T20 World Cup in Australia. And she said that if you are in an interview with her, she doesn't expect you to remember all these questions. It's not a memory test. So if, for example, if you are worried that you are going to forget this list of magnificent questions that you've come up with, feel free to write them down, print them out, and bring them into the interview, because it's not a memory test. It's more important that you get your questions across. And to be honest, if someone did that for me, I'd be quite impressed that they took the time to prepare to this extent and were willing to do that as well. So, James, I hope that answers your question. Prepare questions that make sure the organisation is fit for you. Now, if you'd like to ask us a question or our friends in sport a question, make sure you jump on the SportsGrad community and become a member. You just heard from Ash today, who's a SportsGrad Pro member. If you are working in the sports industry, make sure you apply to become a SportsGrad Pro member. We only let full-time working professionals into that group to make sure that people are connecting with like-minded people. Or if you're still trying to get your foot in the door, you can become a rookie member during our next intake period. But there's benefits for all, whether you're looking for your first job or your next job, or you're looking to grow in confidence so that you can expand in your current role. Those two communities can definitely help you get there. Until next time, be sure to check out the rest of the podcast in our bank. There's lots of examples to learn from other people right around the sports industry. I'd encourage you to scroll through Spotify or Apple, wherever you listen, and find something that sticks out to you, because the information in this podcast is like having a coffee with anybody. And if you can't get your hands on, or if you can't, reach out to them and make contact with them, then these podcasts are the next best way to get the same information. Until then, find us on LinkedIn. And if you enjoy the show us some love with a rating, subscribe on Apple or follow on Spotify. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Hey friends, one last thing before you go. If you really want to make an impact in sport, then subscribe to the SportsGrad newsletter. Inside, we share all the latest job openings and networking events, so you're always aware of opportunities to land a job and grow your network. Plus, we share a Q&A with a professional on how they grow their career in sport. Here we talk about things like how they moved overseas or negotiated their salary or landed a new job or promotion, made a career change, and so much more. It's kind of like a little boost of inspiration in your inbox before the weekend. So if you're like us, you're career driven and you're keen to progress quickly, you're going to love the SportsGrad newsletter. To get it, head to sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter to subscribe, or follow the link in the show notes. See you next time.